Welcome to Blending the Family, the podcast. Topics can range from what is good wine on a first date, parenting tips, and not being afraid to ask for help. Here's your host, who was a stay-at-home dad and was actually outsourced, Tommy Maloney.
Welcome to another edition of the podcast known as Blending the Family. I am your host, Tommy Maloney, coming to you from Tracy, California, sick as a dog. I've been in bed for the past 2 days. It sucks. Do you agree? It sucks. Not only being sick, but sick away from home. I am so looking forward to getting home. Anyway, on this episode, we have Joanie and Clint Malarchuck. Well, and a special appearance of Banjo. And also, you'll get to hear Brian Peck at the opening. But for the most part, Joanie and Clint Malarchuck are on this show. And they are just people I've wanted to interview for a long time. And I actually met Clint and Joanie a few years ago when there was an event being sponsored by the Carson J Spencer Foundation. And look that up, the Carson J Spencer Foundation, a very wonderful organization trying to help people essentially not take their lives. How's that? But I got to hear Clint talk in a private workshop that he had at this event, but also again, excuse me, sick, tired. But Joanie and Clint put on a presentation. I was really fascinated to hear about how does somebody who, in Clint's situation, if you don't know Clint's story, he was a former NHL goalie. He played for the Buffalo Sabres, Washington Capitals, Quebec Nordiques, and his story is that he had a horrific accident one night in Buffalo against the St. Louis Blues, where one of the Blues skaters caught. Clint was a goalie, and the St. Louis Blues player accidentally slashed with his skate Clint's throat, his jugular. And I highly recommend Google it or just simply read Clint's book with Clint Malarchuck with Dan Robson. The name of the book is A Matter of Inches, How I Survived in the Crease and Beyond. Again, A Matter of Inches, How I Survived in the Crease and Beyond. And it talks about Clint's story about, growing up outside of Edmonton, Canada, obsessed with being a hockey player, obsessed with being a goalie. But because of partially, he had a rough family life. We talk about that. And one of the things I was fascinated, because I just recently read Curtis Joseph book. And it's just, I find it unique that two professional hockey goalies made it to the NHL where they had really bad a family upbringing. So, again, read Clint's book. But I wanted to hear Joanie's story. I wanted to hear how she was able to support Clint in all these years of him battling his depression. He had a suicide attempt with a shotgun, and we talk about that. But I really didn't want to talk about the book per se. Excuse me, my nose is running. You really need to hear that. My nose is running. But I really didn't want to talk about the book per se. I wanted to hear how the two of them have really built a loving relationship, and we dive right into it right away, and you'll hear Joanie talk about that. And so I've been wanting to do this interview for a long time, but the problem is I've been too afraid to ask. And this is how dumb it is. Joanie and I are connected on LinkedIn. I just sent her an instant message, and she said yes right away. We set up the time, and the funny thing is, the day we did this interview, they had some bad storms in their area, so the signal dropped a little bit, but for the most part, you'll get to hear everything, including, like I said, excuse me, who's in the book, Brian Peck, who's a dear friend of the Malarchucks, and he's a character. He was cracking me up, and turns out he knows exactly the area where I live, and hopefully one day he and I can sit down and have a glass of water. Okay? I think that's it. I just want to get this post-production done and go to bed. Again, I hate being sick. I hate it. It's even worse on the road. Anyway, I think that's about it. Yeah, okay. I've been sitting up too long, and here we go. All right. Again, Joanie, Clint Malarchuck. Again, the name of the book, A Matter of Inches, How I Survived in the Crease and Beyond. Clint Malarchuck with Dan Robinson, Robson. It's a really good book. Really good book. So, there you go. All right. As Terry Crews would say, your success is my success. Have a great day. Thanks for listening. Stay healthy. Don't get sick, especially on the road.
Warning. You're about to listen to a conversation, not an interview.
You know who I am, don't you? Like, I'm the guy that took the infamous radiograph of Clint's head.
Yeah, he's the X-ray guy.
Yeah.
Well, I've got the...
Have a chair.
Yeah.
Yeah, have a chair.
Yeah, I'm in the book.
He's in the book. I gotta grab my cue.
Okay.
Billy Keogh's been
Okay.
texting me.
Oh, he has.
Yeah.
I texted him a couple times.
Yeah, you get them three together, and they're gonna start chit-chatting about everything.
Well, you know...
So where are you right now?
I'm in Greeley, Colorado. As a cowboy, you know where Greeley, Colorado is.
I went to vet school in Fort Collins.
No way! My oldest daughter is graduating from CSU in
Oh,
May.
yeah. Yeah, no, I still know quite. Actually, there's a girl that I coached in softball that's playing at UNC.
Oh, here in Greeley.
Yeah, Sheena
Wow.
Robinson. Yeah, it's her first year there.
Wow.
She was a good player for us here in Gardnerville.
Well, when you gonna come out for a visit? You got to put. I mean, all three of you and Banjo have a place to stay. If you ever come to Greeley.
He's right here.
Yeah,
He's on the table.
Well, actually, my wife's sister and brother-in-law live there, and I've got nieces and nephews there, so I may be coming there soon.
Well,
I'm welcome.
you got to come over for dinner.
All right.
We'll bust out some sea oil and just have a party.
Yeah, there you go.
Some what?
The CD, that oil.
CBD oil.
Oh, well,
Come on, Clint, keep up with me. I know I'm in the goalie union too, so come on.
Okay.
all right. Well, I'm gonna sit and watch and let you do your interview. But
Well,
it was good to meet you.
it's good to be met.
He's a hockey dad.
Oh.
Travel and take his kid to the hockey tournament. 9:00 game tonight.
Oh,
How
In
far away?
Monument, Colorado.
Oh yeah, Monument. Yeah. How
Yeah.
far away is that?
Well, from Greeley, it's a good 2 hours.
Okay. Is there snow in there?
Mm-mm. Nope. I think we're gonna be close to 60 today.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, well, it looks like we're good to go.
Oh, are you sure?
Yeah.
Anyone else coming in? Anyone else coming over?
You never know.
You never know at the Malarchuck house.
Hockey guy.
So when we first met at the I've got the card, the Carson J Spencer event.
Yeah.
I've been wanting to speak to both you, Joanie, and you, Clint.
Yeah.
Because when the two of you were doing your presentation towards the end of the event, I really started thinking more and more about how important it is to have a really good spouse or a really good partner.
Support.
so for example, is I've had my battles with depression, suicide since I was pretty young too. And when I started hearing your story, the one thing I really wanted to help the listeners and help more of the women out there who have boyfriends or significant others that battle depression is how Joanie how have you helped Clint through his battles? I mean, I know through email we were talking, and I said if nobody's heard of Clint's story, Google it, because I really wanted to focus on your relationship and how a wife in your situation has had to go through a lot, but you two are such a strong couple. So how have you been able to stay so strong in all these years?
Go ahead. I'll just go that there was a lot of things that happened that going through when I was at my worst. I always tell people, they're talking to a loved one that's really struggling mentally or emotionally or that, and they don't even think they're getting heard by the person. And we do hear the I love yous, even though we don't acknowledge it and our faces are blank or our minds are spinning 100 miles an hour. We do hear that. We do hear what they're saying to us. There's been times where, at my darkest and my paranoia and everything that I was going through, there was a number of things that happened that we were very fortunate that happened, like me going to a treatment center, which was a dual diagnosis facility, being my medication being righted there, learning about the disorder and the addiction that so many people do self-medicate when they struggle mentally. And we are very lucky and fortunate that Joanie got sent to a facility for a week to learn also about, tell that story. That's a great story about the circle of people.
Yeah, that's a great story. But to go back to your original, when you first asked, I don't think anything works unless you are truly best friends. I don't think the rehab, I don't think anything would work unless we really just
Committed.
We really like each other. I mean, it's one thing to be in love and say, I want to have a marriage and I want to have kids and I want to have a family. But you really have to like somebody, all good and bad, to put up with my shit.
Mine, of course.
Because I don't think if that connection hadn't been there, I don't think he would have heard the stuff that he says that I said to him, the I love yous. And I don't think I would have been persistent when it got to the point where he needed to go to the rehab and he didn't want to go. And it was that friendship that made me look at it and go, well, look here, buddy, you don't have a choice. Your decisions you've been making have not been good, so now I'm stepping in. And I respected and loved him, and he's such a good, just a friend of mine, besides being in love with him, that I knew that this was going to be the best decision for him. He couldn't see it. He couldn't make it. And if I was going to have to be the one to make it, so be it. And if you hate me and you want to scream and yell at me all you want, we'll go right ahead. At least you're going to be alive and be around to scream and yell at me for it.
So when you two first met, I mean, did you know Joanie, who Clint was? Did you know, just for the listeners' benefit, did you know his backstory of that very traumatic incident in Buffalo?
No.
No, I told you about it, but you weren't emotionally connected to any of those things because they happened before we met. But yeah, I told Joanie about my mental illness, my OCD, depression, anxiety, my childhood, my dad, and my accident, of course.
Right, but I had no idea before he told me. Like when we met in the rink.
No, you didn't know anything.
No, I didn't know anything. And I think the only hockey I ever watched was that miracle hockey game because my mom's a sports fanatic. And I had worked with a few hockey players because I was coaching figure skating. And when I lived in Minnesota, I had a few hockey players that I would work with. But knowing who he was and what he'd gone through and being in that small group of hockey and knowing everything, I had no idea. He told me, oh, yeah, I'm the guy. I had an accident once. And I was like, oh, wow, that's bad. And I have this and I have this and I have this. And I thought, okay, well, now what?
He's a keeper. That's what you're thinking, Joanie. He's a keeper.
Yeah. No baggage.
No. Oh, yeah, exactly. No baggage there, Clint.
But, and everybody has stuff. I mean, my little sister deals with some stuff. I have aunts and uncles probably that deal with stuff. People have accidents all the time. And I never in a million years thought that it would really become, a life or death issue. It just never crossed my mind.
So was your growing up, your childhood, Joanie? I mean, was it a normal family, white picket fence?
Yeah, we were, as normal as you can get.
With the military.
Being a military brat, where
Okay.
we moved from, I was born in Oklahoma. We went all the way to Germany and back. I mean, we moved almost every year, every other year. And, but it was mom and dad are always there. Mom makes dinner. Dad comes home. We run and meet him. We always got a dog. We've got.
But that being said, the military life is moving every couple of years. Overseas in Germany, they lived there, and I think that kind of unsettled lifestyle, moving all the time, making new friends, and maybe not wanting to make friends because you're going to move in a year or two, actually helped prepare her in the future with life with Clint.
I think what do they say, that the only thing that you can count on in life is that it's going to change.
Yeah.
I think I grew up with that, and I grew up meeting so many different people with so many different, ailments in life and things going on, that hearing, oh, you've got OCD and you take medicine. Okay, well, my mom's got no thyroid and she takes thyroid medication. So what's the difference?
Yeah, because you're not really connecting what Clint was going through and versus what your mom's going through. You just hear OCD, thyroid, they're interchangeable.
Yeah.
So again, going through this dating process, when did you realize, Joanie, that Clint was the guy for you? Even after maybe finding more and more about Clint, what was it that said, all right, not only is this somebody I am in love with, but like you were saying earlier, is somebody that is your best friend?
I don't know. I think, I don't want to speak for you, but I think for me, it was almost right away. I think the older you get, you know yourself more, and you know what you want out of life. You know how to make yourself happy, and you just want somebody alongside of you that complements that and encourages you and makes you a better person. And I think, right when we met, he always encouraged me to do the skating. He skated, and I thought, we've got that in common.
I didn't figure skate.
No, he didn't figure skate. Play hockey, but
no real goalie figure skate.
Yeah.
It was just a connection where he was always positive with whatever I wanted to do. And I was always trying to be, I hope I was, positive with everything he wanted to do.
Yeah, she supported me with my coaching. At the time, I was coaching when we met, and moving around, all those things. Once we were married, even I was working in Atlanta with the Thrashers, Columbus,
Florida.
And that's when we met, when I was working with Florida.
Yeah.
And then Calgary. When I was in Calgary, I was full time there, and she would do commuting back and forth. And never ever complained about, oh, you're gone all winter, and all training camp, basically September to May, and she took care of the ranch, all the animals, and would do the commuting, and meet me on the road sometimes, or meet me up in Calgary. So she was very supportive of my career as well.
That had to be an interesting lifestyle, Joanie, going from the so-called normal family. Now you're helping raise horses.
Not really. I think because my mom grew up on a farm, a ranch. She had 13 brothers and sisters, and they plowed fields. They did all that. So as kids, we would always visit. And
they were country bumpkins down in Texas.
But they're great people, and that was my mom. My dad used to laugh that she was the cowgirl, and my dad always wanted to be the cowboy. So having the horses here, I think my family thought it was more weird than me because I was always the one that never wanted to get dirty, never wanted to get anything on me. And here I'm the one that's shoveling horse poop and
and living the dream.
Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing too, when I was at my worst and going through things, people were telling Joanie, leave, he's crazy. He's an alcoholic. They feared for her safety. And she would always say, oh no, he's perfectly happy beating the house up. He'll never touch me. But her parents were the ones that said, Clint, we know Clint, he's a good guy. He's sick and he needs help. If you ever get to a point where you can't take it, her dad said, I'll come and get you. But they supported her staying with me.
Yeah, they said, if you're going to stay, you need to do everything you can to help him, not to enable him to do what he's still doing. And they encouraged me to try to get him into a rehab, do this. Doctors. And they said, he's going to be mean to you because you're the one that's there. He's going to throw out everything at you, but you stick to what you know is right. And if you ever decide you've had enough, your dad will drive down there and pick you up.
and part of that turning point too was her education and of getting, like, I was very verbally abusive because we're that way to the ones we love because they're not going to run away, hopefully.
Yeah.
But she learned at this treatment center that she went for a week that, they're sitting there and sharing the stories about their loved one who was, in my case, the one in a rehab. And they're saying, Joanie was going, gee, Clint said that. Clint did that. Clint says that. Clint says that. And she realized that it wasn't personal, that we are sick and we're lashing out with anger, because there's a lot of anger that goes with mental illness because you've lost control of your ability to think rationally, in my case, depression, anxiety, OCD, and you get frustrated. I've talked to a lot of military guys with PTSD, and we all have degrees of anxiety or depression, different degrees, but the one common denominator that we all went, oh my God, was anger issues.
Well, and I think it all, in a way, I kind of say we got lucky. I think they decided to send me to what they said was a treatment center. And right around the same time, I think you were struggling with, do I buy into this or am I okay? Just get me out of here. I need my hockey job. And I was getting frustrated because
I was blaming you for everything.
He was still blaming me. He was acting in the rehab like everything was fine. He would get cell phones and vent to me online at night and, on the phone. And then he'd go in the next day feeling perfectly normal. And what I was telling the center was not what they were seeing from him. They're going, well, that's not the Clint we see.
Yeah, he's easygoing. He's happy. Yeah, there's no anger.
I had no idea. I go, how am I going to do this? What's going to happen is he's going to get out. I'm going to go right back to where I was. So I was getting frustrated. Then when they said they wanted to send me to this center, I was livid. I thought, he's convinced them that I'm the crazy one. And it was my parents that said, look, it's education. And you take what works for you, and you just leave on the table what doesn't work for you. But you're going to get a break. You're going to get away from your living right now and you're working. You're going to get a break from Clint and you're going to learn some information. And it might be useful or it might not. But at least whatever happens in the end, you can look at yourself and say, I did everything I could. I learned everything I could. And it was the first day that I got there. And they were just explaining everything. And then the people started saying how their loved ones acted. And I was amazed. No amount of education could have done what that group did, where it would be like you saying, oh, well, my wife said this today. And I'd look at him and go, my husband said those exact same words. I mean, like to the T. It was almost like they had a Bible book where they'd say, okay, on February 2nd, we're going to say this to our loved ones and see how they react. Because it feels like they're personally attacking you. And it feels like they're the only ones that know this. And then, so to hear everyone else, I was like.
That was a revelation for her recovery, and learning that, you know, you can't take all those things personal, because we all say it in our craziness or self-medicating or whatever, that it's the illness. So she differentiated between the illness and me in the illness.
Yeah.
And when I was acting out. So it was a turning point for Joanie for sure.
And also learning that a person's addiction, whether it be drugs, you know, even eating, whatever their addiction is, to try to get a handle on their mental health issues, exacerbates it, makes it worse. So knowing that, I was like, oh, well, that's easy. I can take the alcohol away, no problem. And then all I have to deal with is a person who has some OCD, and he can manage it. It is manageable if the addiction is not there, but they do the addiction because it's the self-medicating. So learning that too, I felt so much better. I thought, oh, well, shoot, I can handle this. Why not?
And when we communicated after that 5-day stint that Joanie did, I felt a lot more compassion and understanding in our communication. I felt like, wow, I'm speaking to a different person, because there was so much damage that I caused to Joanie that, I mean, you could see her blood pressure just rise the second I started to obsess or question things or whatever. So I really felt a different energy and understanding from Joanie after that.
Yeah, because the things he would say would push my buttons so much.
Well, it's been so long of.
Yeah, you get so angry and so frustrated, you don't know what to do. So after going to that week long and doing the exercises and working through everything, and actually they didn't let me talk to him the whole week. When I came back, and it almost at one point felt like we were going to get into it again. And I literally was able to just look at him and say, God, I'm really sorry you're having a bad day, but I got to go. I got a long drive ahead of me. Have a good week. I'll see you next week. And it didn't bother me, and I didn't feel the need to lash out and throw it back at him. And I think because I was that way, he was able to calm down and say, okay, this is my stuff. You have your stuff. We'll meet in the middle.
And at that time, too, I was starting to get educated and accept my PTSD, because they were telling me my PTSD. And I'm going, no. I was a rock star in Buffalo. I came back in 10 days. You know, I'm the tough guy. You know, I was admired so much in Buffalo. I was like, yes, I got depression, anxiety, OCD, but PTSD, no, I don't. And once we kind of went back to the years after my accident and things that happened, I started to understand that, yeah, I do have PTSD. So once I accepted that and went to work on my stuff, at the same time she was at the clinic that she was at, and it just kind of was an evolvement from there of starting to heal a bit and learn, and I had done a lot of damage in the marriage, and it's remarkable.
How many years were you into the marriage when Joanie went to that 5-day rehab center? And also, did Clint know that you were at the rehab center too, Joanie? Or
yeah, because we had done a family week at his rehab center in San Francisco, and it was done by the Betty Ford Center. And
Banjo.
Yeah, Banjo.
Come here.
They had recommended that that's where they wanted to send me. So he knew that I was going. Yeah, I don't. And your first question again was what?
So how long
we were
were you two married?
We had gotten married in 2006, and he shot himself and was in the rehab in 2008. So I always laugh at people, or people, but I always laugh and say, boy, you married me and things went downhill fast.
and they almost did. Like it was part of my, the timing wasn't great. So we had probably a good year of decent health for me, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe not even that much, 9 months. And then things started to go downhill with my mental health.
But I think too that going through all of that in the rehab and then seeing him getting better and stuff too, I think you really have to not only just be in love with the person, but you really have to like the person. Because I used to think, you know, when my mom came here to visit me, and she'd laugh at me about the stuff I'd get upset about. And I'm like, Mom, this is not funny. And she'd say, well, yes, it is when you really think about it. think about what he's saying, and he really doesn't mean it, you know. And she was able to have me take a step back and say, look, he's just going through a bad time. You can walk away from this, Joanie, anytime you want. And I remember hearing that from her, thinking, you know, you're right. I could walk out this door and never deal with depression, anxiety, OCD, alcoholism ever again. But he can't. It's wherever he goes, it follows him around. So I thought, what if the shoes were flipped? What if I was the one? And I thought, you know, I can handle this. I'm healthy. I'm a young adult. I can deal with this. And I just have to kick him in the butt once in a while, and we're good.
You know, I want to, so from the book, Clint, A Matter of Inches, How I Survived in the Crease and Beyond, the opening, pretty much your opening forward, she found me beside the tack shed. What are you doing out here? She said. I'm looking for rabbits. I spat out my chew. What are we going to do about this? She asked. My mind roared and my body shook. My face was wet with sweat and tears. There'd been moments like this before, moments when I swore I'd do it. I'll tie a string around the doorknob and attach it to the trigger. You'll come in and blow me away. A clear day later, and the words would haunt and sting. You know, I'd never do that kind of thing. I love you. And I did. I love Joanie as much. I mean, looking back on all this, you know, especially that day, what have we, the two of you, learned from that specific day, as far as, again, you know, you keep saying, Joanie, and God bless you, I mean, for staying with Clint, but at the same time, you understood that Clint had obviously some mental issues. So let me rephrase it. What have you two learned from after writing this book? And especially going back to that opening.
Well, I would say personally, well, I probably speak for both of us on this, that, you know, I wrote the book to help people, but I really didn't know that it would impact people and change people's lives and give so much hope. And the other thing is, my email's in the back of the book, and I was getting tons of emails, Facebook messages, things like that. I went, my God, there is so many people out there like me, you know, and I think we all do that. And that's why we suffer in silence for so long before we actually do get help. And some never get help because they think they're the only one, or they think there's other people, but they're not as bad as me. And I realized from the book that there's so many people that struggle with mental illness. And then since the book, I've been public speaking, and then over a period, not that long, Joanie started to speak with me at quite a few events. And after the events, people would come up and they're tearful, they're hugging us, and a lot of people wanted to talk to Joanie because they related to her, and a lot of people wanted to talk to me because they related to me and my sickness. So that's where I think our lives kind of changed. Just that realization of everything, that there's a lot of people that do struggle, and that we are helping people, you know, adapt and get help and realize that they're not alone. And there's a lot of us out there. And once Joanie realized, when she started speaking, it kind of opened your eyes too. I think that people coming up and talking to you, and phone calls. I would be in my barn sometimes for 2 hours on the phone, just being support to people that reached out. And Joanie would say, why are you're spending too much time doing this? All of a sudden she starts getting a phone call. She had this one guy from New York call her, and she was on the phone for 3 hours. I said, well, how did that feel? She was like, kind of draining, but it felt good to help.
Now, did you mean, how did it change our lives after the book came out, or how did that change our lives in looking at if that situation were to happen again?
That specific moment. So looking back at that particular moment, I mean,
for me, it was kind of, I don't know if this is a lesson to be learned, but it kind of really taught me how fast things can go bad.
And I think maybe you realized how sick I was. She knew I was very sick, but at that moment, I you know, the moment the gun went off, we all like how really sick he is.
Well, and you kind of think too, maybe if I'd done something different, I could have stopped it. Maybe if I'd come home, maybe if I'd said something different, maybe if I had called a friend, come over or something. I've had a lot of people tell me, yeah, you need to get past that. And what I've learned since that day and talking to people about that is they never get over that.
Yeah.
Everyone I've talked to said, you get used to the thought
like
being there. Yeah, you get used to dealing with it, and it doesn't bother you so much every day. But that thought that, yeah, I think I could have changed it, or I think I could have stopped it, happens. And even now,
if I'd have done this, or if I'd have done
that. Now when I even get the feeling that something's going bad, I feel like if I could call in the Air Force troops, I would. But
panic mode.
I go into panic mode, and I start making sure I've got numbers and everything in place so I can get everything taken care of before it starts going downhill.
And
so how do you, Joanie, how do you decompress all this? How do you, you're obviously a caregiver to Clint, but how do you, what is your outlet after going, oh my gosh, I need a break? What is it that helps you re-energize? Now I'm assuming that Clint, you haven't had any episodes.
Well, I got bad days still, but nothing drastic. I'm on good medication now. I'm not drinking. I got a program that I follow, a daily thing like working out, meditation, all these little tools. We go to a counselor together. And being a service and our speaking really helps. But interesting, a couple of years ago, we were speaking in Boston, and we're getting ready the night before in the hotel, kind of going over our presentation. And all of a sudden, Joanie just started crying, just bawling. And I'm like, what? Well, it's not that bad. and humor is a good relief too for us. We both have a healthy sense of humor. And she just said, I just don't know. For all this time, it's been about you. I've been on alert, and it's been Clint. You're sick, and everybody and myself trying to help. And she never processed. And now it started to sink in. I guess you would call it the PTSD. For sure, she's got PTSD. I mean, she was right there when I shot myself, right there. And she never really processed it because it was always about me and me getting healthy and this and that. So that was
for me, it's just getting it off my chest.
Yeah.
And a lot of that stuff had built up that you don't even know it's there because you're always fixing it. You're always, the one that's taken care of, even if it's stupid things like grocery shopping, cleaning the house, you're always doing something. And then when you get to a point where you kind of relax, it all starts flooding in, and you kind of get mad. And I was just mad at him. And I was able, it was almost like a movie where I said, all right, here it is. I'm mad at this, you did this, and back in this year, and I went through everything. And I think the fact that he didn't take any of it personally. He just sat there and looked at me and said, do you feel better? I said, yeah, I do. And even to this day, because I know me and I'm like that, I'll let things build up and then I'll just lose it on him. But now I can lose it on him, and he doesn't take it personally. I still teach figure skating. I still go up to the lake, not as much as I'd like, but to me, that's a huge release because it's something totally different than anything, we do. Teaching, an 11-year-old how to land a double flip completely takes your mind off anything going on at the house.
Yeah, it was definitely a turning point, I think, for Joanie that night in Boston. And I said, are you going to see a counselor now? You want to see a counselor? She said, yeah, I'll do it. It took some time, but we're both seeing a counselor together. And we did a lot of therapy after I got out of the facility. We had to go to marriage counseling, individual counseling, but it was temporary, pretty much. We felt like we were healing okay.
Yeah.
It took time for Joanie to, I don't know if forgive is the word, because I was so sick. I didn't do it on purpose, and I know she knows that. But
that's the thing again. All of that, I think for somebody on my side has nothing to do with them. It has nothing to do with forgiving them, nothing that they did. It has to do with all the thoughts we have.
Well,
The thoughts like, God, I hate my life right now. You know, or I hate that you're doing that, or I hate that this is happening. Because then it comes back like, I'm a bad person. I said I hated you that day. I said I hated my life that day. You know, and you start feeling bad for the things you said, and the fact that you said you hated your life and you didn't like it, and going to a counselor, a person who knows nothing about you and is just hearing this for the first time, is able to look at you and go, that's normal.
Yeah. Kind of, what do they say, quantify your feelings?
Yeah, and it's like, you can hate your life, you can hate your drive to work, but that doesn't mean you don't like work.
Well, and I think one of the things I've really liked in the book was where, I think it was in San Diego, Clint, where the doctor you went to, and he said, here's a prescription for Zoloft, and you're sitting there going, well, don't you want to know about my history? Don't you? No. Let's start with the little steps, what it sounded like, before we really tackle, because like the doctor was saying, that it was a chemical imbalance.
Right.
Let's get that working, and then let's start working on everything out.
Well, he explained it to me so well, but it had never been explained that way before. He says, son, you have a chemical imbalance. It's like you don't produce enough serotonin in your brain. And it's like a diabetic. Their insulin level, it's a chemical imbalance, different organ. And we're just going to have to get that your serotonin uptake going and boosted, and you're going to be fine. And I'm like, really? I've heard this story before, but I like the way he explained it. And, you know, that was a definite, the first time that once the medication kicked in about 6 weeks after I started taking it, that I said, wow, is this what it feels like to be normal? I mean, I was like, I can't believe it. And I had anger because I felt like I've suffered so much in my life, yet I was elated on the other hand that finally I was experiencing maybe the first time in my life normality in my emotions and thinking, and, you know, lack of, you know, getting rid of all that pain. So that was a big point, turning point there.
So one of the things that you were mentioning, Clint, and I'm really fascinated because one of my favorite apps on my phone is Headspace, which is a meditation app.
I've heard of it. And
what is, do the two of you meditate together? Do you do it separately? What?
No.
Well, joke. You know what? She wasn't feeling good, but yesterday or the day before. And, you know, when I meditate or lay down, sometimes she'll come and lay down and have a nap, and I'll be sitting there meditating. And so I've been encouraging her to meditate. And, you know, it's funny, meditation is not necessarily, you know, Om or yoga or, you know, it's so many different ways. And I kind of read some books on meditation and tried to do it that way. Then I realized I've kind of meditated my whole life, preparing for hockey games, visualization. It's a different form of meditation. I water the grass by hand in front of my barn. And I love doing it. I do it every day in the summer. And it's just, I'm just lost in it. I'm watching the water come out of the hose, and it's a form of meditation, a different form. And one day I see Joanie, she puts Banjo in our little dog, he's actually my emotional support dog, puts Banjo in the basket in the bike, and she puts her earphones in and goes on a bike ride. And she was doing that every day for a long time. And I said to her, I said, you know what? You're meditating. You're meditating when you do that. So there's different forms, and people get intimidated by meditation. So they always say, oh, I can't stay still, or I can't quiet my mind. Well,
so even if you don't call it meditation, to me, it's just a way to shut the world out and kind of just focus on you. And I've always done it. I still do it. And I'll get up extra early. I'll go into the rink and doing those figure eights on the ice. Mm-hmm. I don't do them anymore, but to me, there's no sound. All you hear is the buzzing of the Zamboni and the lights. And it's just such a meditation thing.
No one's there.
No one's there. Once in a while, another adult comes in and does it with me, but I'll get on early. I'll do the first 20 minutes. And if my day starts off nice and calm like that, I have a great day.
And that's good advice. I mean, to start your day with a meditation, or mean, she gets up at 3:30 in the morning because she's up at the lake, Lake Tahoe, at the rink there, coaching. And she doesn't have to get up quite that early, I don't think, but she does because she likes the quiet time in the morning and to get her day started right.
So that's my meditation.
Yeah. So I highly recommend to people, that are watching this, to find some form of quieting, of quiet time. And, if you can quiet your mind, great. If you can't, you can focus on the water coming out of the hose,
A lot of people around here go horseback riding. And I don't even think it has to be anything that's quiet or calm. I mean, I'm sure there might be some people that go race cars or something just because of that focus in on one thing where it shuts the whole rest of the world out.
Sometimes when I feed the horses, I'll hang out there and it's quiet outside and you can hear them, grinding their food, and it's like calming.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's important to bookend your day because, if you can start off, like you were saying, Joanie, on a good note, start off, with some type of, again, not to totally label it, but to do a meditation when you start your day and maybe a meditation at night. Because as we all know, the craziness in between, you can't control that, but you can control how you start your day and how you end your day.
Yeah. My mom used to say, I can't handle that today. I'll handle that tomorrow.
It's funny because one of the things when I got into coaching myself was, and I didn't label it as meditation per se. I just wanted to create more of what's happening between the ears for the goalies I coached. And one of the things I did with my son was before every game, he'd come to the bench. I'd have him close his eyes, have him take 3 deep breaths, and then I would say to him, "Where are you at?" And we had this routine before I got remarried. I had a townhome that had this really long driveway in between the townhomes, so we used that as a hockey rink. And so I'd say, "Where are you?" And he would say, "At the townhome." And I'd say, "What are you doing?" "I'm making saves." "How are you feeling?" And he'd say, "I'm making myself proud." And then I'd give him a moment, and then I'd say, "All right, go have fun." And he'd go skate to the net.
And that's basic sports psychology, and especially for a position like a goalie. I mean, you got to be so in tune and focused. That's great, a great exercise.
Yeah, because you talked about doing that.
Yeah.
We did it before skating programs. You stand to the side and you close your eyes and you envision yourself doing the program. Skiers do it. You'll see them standing on the top of the hill before a ski race and their eyes are shut and they're visualizing and feeling the whole hill as they go down the hill.
Yeah, visualization is so huge. It is so huge. I mean, I believe it was in the book The Secret, and they talk a lot about visualization. They talk about golfers. Even people have been in POW camps to keep themselves mentally focused. They would vision, again, being on a golf course and hitting the golf ball and walking and going from hole to hole, because your mind is so powerful. I mean, I'm reading right now from David Goggins, Can't Hurt Me. He's a former Navy SEAL, and he talks a lot about not just physical toughness, but mental toughness.
Yeah. We used to do programs, and wherever we'd mess up in our head was 100% of the time where we'd mess up on the ice. And if we could get our brain to get past that point, then we wouldn't mess up when we got on the ice.
And going back to mental illness or mental health, the people that suffer in silence, they're afraid that they're going to be perceived as mentally weak. And you got to understand, it's not a weakness. It's a sickness. It's a sickness. And with any sickness, you can get well. And that's part of the stigma that people think, well, and I remember when I first was struggling in the NHL with this, I didn't want anybody to know because I thought the team would perceive me as mentally weak, and I wouldn't have a job. So I suffered in silence because of that stigma. And for me now, looking back, with a high pressure job of being an NHL goalie and suffering with mental illness, I was pretty damn mentally tough, mentally strong. But at the time, I didn't think so.
Well, you talk about the one story with Terry Murray, your former head coach when you were at the Capitals, I believe, and he was saying a little disparaging remark, even though, as you said in the book, you had a lot of respect for Mr. Murray, but and maybe this was still old school mentality, or even in today's world, because nothing against USA Hockey, but my problem with USA Hockey is when you go through your certification, they blow by the goalie training, and it's a different world. It's like, in my opinion, being a place kicker on a football team. It's a different world. And as you wrote in the book, that Terry didn't understand you being by yourself. Well, as a goalie, in like you were saying, in an NHL, exactly, you were focused. You were getting mentally prepared as well as, physically prepared, but you knew how to get prepared, and it was more important for you to just be by yourself. But like you've mentioned in the book again, is that there are some NHL caliber goalies who can goof around, but that wasn't your style.
Well, I did have a goof around. I did. I was always tried to be perceived as easygoing. Part of it was a cover up because of the turmoil inside with my mental illness. So I kind of went on the other way, tried to be extremely clowning around and everything. But there was a time before a game that you had to turn that off and get focused. And yeah, I was perceived as sitting in the corner, and one of the coaches saw me and he thought, this kid's losing it, man. He's just sitting there pouting or something. And it's, no, I'm focusing. But that's the old school mentality.
Well, and I find it very ironic because I have to give credit where credit is due. So Curtis Joseph, who I'm sure you know well, and Christine McClellan Day, they wrote his new book, Cujo, and I find it very ironic because he has a similar backstory as you, as far as
childhood.
Pardon?
The childhood part.
The childhood part, exactly. And here are two NHL caliber goalies who went through hell and back, and it's just amazing to read, your story and Curtis Joseph's story of just how you were able to go through a hellacious childhood and end up at the top of the mountain.
Well, I think adversity too. I think both Joanie and I are very empathetic, compassionate, caring, giving of time and support. We started a support group here in town for PTSD. We're part of the suicide prevention network here in our area.
Yeah.
It changes people in a good way. Once you get through it, you become compassionate or empathetic or whatever it might be. And working with charities or whatever, it's because you've gone through something. And I also think it makes you stronger. And maybe that's why being a goaltender, especially, that's probably one of the toughest things in the world to do. You're like you said, you're kind of a individual in a team sport, like a punter, and the pressure's on you. You can win or lose games more than any other player on the team. The hero or the GOAT. And I think what you go through in life develops you. Like I said about Joanie moving all the time with the military, I think later in life it helped her deal with Clint, not knowing any of that, going through what it was as a child.
Yeah. Well, and Clint had said too, you had said too, that growing up, the way you did, not the best childhood, that everything's based around hockey. You're great, and then your coaches and everybody, you kind of start putting your self-worth on how you play.
And
like,
I did that.
I'm a good person if I play good. The media talks to me if I play good. Girls like me if I play good. My family's happy if I play good. There's no turmoil in my family. Where my life was, didn't matter what I did. I came home. My dad still loved me. I didn't have to be good at something to feel like I was loved. Where I think Clint did, and I think people like that tend to excel more at a sport and will probably make it there because you're as a human being, you're constantly looking for that pat on the back and that love and support, where I got it all the time, didn't matter what I did. And Clint felt like it was there when he played good. So of course you're going to try your best to play great all the time.
But that's a very unhealthy way of thinking, that your self-worth depends on your performance, especially as a kid or a teenager. That's very unhealthy thinking. If you have a bad game, you're a shitty person.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a great game, you're a great guy, or feel worthy or loved. That's a sickness right there of thinking. It's not healthy.
I mean,
I still struggle today with self-worth. Not as much. I self-love. I would say, I grew up in guilt and shame. So now when I make a mistake, my default mode is to feel guilt and shame and stay there because I grew up with it. So it's a comfort in a way, as uncomfortable and hurtful as it is. I grew up with that guilt and shame. So when I make a mistake now, I have to tell myself, don't stay there, do the next right thing. Or, because that's our childhood's really, we develop a lot of our personality and our emotional maturity and things like that when we're kids and teenagers.
See, mine was the opposite. I would blow a program, fall on everything,
Skating.
get off the ice in skating, and my dad would come up and say, well, you're still the prettiest gal out there. Let's go have dinner. So it did, for me, it was completely different.
You both bring up some great points, and especially, Joanie, still coaching youth. What have you learned from what Clint has gone through all these years that you were able to transform into your coaching, working with, young people, not just the physical aspects of figure skating, but the mental aspects?
How about the OCD?
Yeah, we had talked about this when I met him.
We were just dating, yep.
Yeah, we were just dating, and he was telling me about OCD. There you go. Cujo. Where do they go? And I said, the way you're describing yourself, it's that trait that I would look for in skaters. When you're picking them out, in skate schools, there was a certain thing about kids. You learn as, I've been coaching at that point for 14, 15 years, and I was getting really good at pointing it out. I could say, she's got it. I didn't know what it was, but I knew that when I got them, and if they wanted to skate, they would be there early, be the last ones off. They'd want to skate 7 days a week. If I told them to try it 50 times, they try it 150 times.
Jump, fall.
I had no idea that that's what obsessive compulsive was, and and that how it could carry over into a life. So now when I have kids like that, and the parents are sending me videos, and they're in their living room spinning, or they're practicing jumps, instead of encouraging it more, I'm like, that's great, but let's save it for the rink, go watch a movie or something.
And she'll ask a parent now, like, I see some OCD tendencies, which isn't always bad. We all can relate to it and have it to a degree. Is this in the home life? Is this skater like a young Clint Malarchuck doing things, obsessively and compulsively?
Yeah.
So she checks in with the parents now to make sure it's manageable.
And I think I've made more of a point to compliment the kids when they, especially when they mess up or they fail. I think I always did, because that's the way I was raised with my dad, but I've made a more conscious effort. They get there and they mess everything up, or they fail a test, and I'm like, that's okay, we'll do it again. You look good.
Positive reassurance.
Yeah, you look pretty, you had a good day, now you got the rest of the day to yourself.
But where's the fine line? I know there's that, every kid is getting a trophy type thing, but where's the fine line between, being a positive encourager and, putting your arm around that person versus maybe every once in a while that kid needs a kick in the ass?
Well, my coaching, when I was coaching, and let's say a goaltender's in a slump and really not doing well, positive reinforcement with every criticism. Like, you're a great goalie. You're look where you are today. You've come so far, and you work your butt off, and I'm so proud of you. But you know what? We got to fix this and this. So it's not like you're going in and saying, you know what, you're really shitting the bed and you're making me look bad and, whatever, you got to get your act together. Let's bear down here. You're not working hard enough. That's just going to build resentment to the player, anxiety, and lack of confidence. So you always got to build and when you're criticizing, you always got to give the compliments, what you're doing right, the work ethic, whatever you see in that person or that goalie or player, and then go to the critiquing, because that's what a coach is. He's a critiquer and a coaching people.
And I think you get to know your kids well enough to know that. I know for me, I always say, I give them tell them 3 times, okay, I really want you to work on this. You don't have to accomplish, you don't have to master the skill, but I want you to work on this. And I'll tell them again, look, I haven't seen you working or trying harder to do it this way or to take the approach this way. And then you get to the point where you're like, all right, that's it. I've had it. You are not doing this. And then I think, okay, now you need a swift kick in the rear end to get you going. And the kids know it too. But I think once you get to know them personally, you can kind of tell, today you're slacking off. Why are you slacking off? Is it because you're tired? You don't want to do this anymore? But I think just personally getting to know them helps on that part of it.
A good head coach in a team sport knows you got to know your players, first of all. And you got to know which kid is insecure, and you got to be very careful on critiquing the insecure. And the ones that are kind of tough and hard, or maybe even lazy, they're the ones that need a little more harsher critique, maybe, to pick them up, get going, come on. That sort of attitude. So a good head coach knows the players and knows how to treat them individually in the critiquing part.
Well, I have to laugh because I was a crappy head coach, and God bless her. I just stuck with goaltending because there were games where I would say my son was probably a squirt, and it would be the end of the first period, and he'd come skating to the bench, and you could see the tears under his mask, and I'm like, well, what's wrong? Are you hurt? He goes, no, I let in a goal. I'm like, dude, we got 2 more periods to go.
And you're a squirt.
Yeah, exactly. Suck it up. Let's go. Let's have some fun.
Yeah. And with the kids now, I've seen it because I've coached right up to junior a couple of years ago, and parents and oh man, every kid's going to be an NHLer, right? And to the parents, and you see them chewing their kid out and yelling and screaming. I mean, let me do that. Let me handle the coaching. And yeah, it can be devastating to some of these kids where it doesn't become fun anymore. It becomes constant pressure on them. And you see it a lot with parents, and it's very sad to me.
And there are those kids who are just never going to be what you know they could be, because it's just not. I've taught kids before where I'll say, come on, are you trying? Not really. I said, well, come on, don't you want to do it?
Not really.
Not really.
So their makeup is different, right? Yeah. And I can tell you, there was kids way more talented than me coming through the minor hockey system. And, I later on, I started to excel more and more. But it was through hard work and love of the game, really a love of the game, hard work. So, it's got to be in your makeup too, right?
Right. Oh, definitely. And, it's like you both said, you have to, as a good coach, you have to know your kids. You have to know, which ones to kick in the butt and which ones you do have to put your arm around.
Yeah. And not everybody's going to work as hard as I'd like them to. So right. I have to be okay with that, okay, this is not about me anymore. I'm helping them fulfill whatever goal they have and for them to completely enjoy. Banjo's, he's trafficking our house.
Shush.
Well, see, it's really funny because usually I'm on the other end with our Chocolate Lab Duke. He's usually one, because I have the office door closed, but usually if I'm interviewing a guest, he'll be the one barking.
Yeah.
And, dude, not now. You can go out in a little bit. So no, this is awesome. I want to respect your time. Where can people get in touch with Joanie and Clint Malarchuck? Where are you guys going to be at next?
All that stuff. Our website, www.malarchuck, .com.
Has it-
Malarchuck. It's got
calendar on it of everywhere we're going to be.
interviews. It's got videos.
Yeah.
A lot of interviews that we've done, in Canada and US. It's got our email.
Yep, you can shoot us an email through there.
Yeah. And that's probably the best way to get a hold of us.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you both. I've been wanting to do this ever since, again, I met the two of you at the Carson J Spencer event. And I was really nervous about reaching out to you, Joanie, because I have so much respect for the two of you, what you do, and as a hockey fan, and I'm really happy being a Chicago Blackhawk fan because I'm sorry, Clint, they trounced Buffalo last night.
Yeah.
3.
You and Vince on.
Yeah. And I've wanted to do this for a long time, but I've been so nervous because, again, I'm a fan, and I was like, well, why would they want to do this? And so I am so thankful and so grateful for the two of you. I'm just like, Clint, thank you so much for signing this book for my son, Connor. That made my day. They always talk about meeting your heroes. And I knew your story, Clint, but I also knew you as a goalie. And that's how I will always think of you, as just a goalie working your butt off. So all I can say is thank you so much, you two. I'm so grateful.
Keep doing what you're doing. You're helping people. Getting, the conversation is so important that we keep the conversation going with mental health. And as you shared, you've had your struggles and demons, and that's why you do what you do.
Yes.
And I appreciate that very much.
Any parting words other than go Blackhawks?
You're not alone, are you? You're not. You're never alone in this game of life. People struggle, and you just got to take that first step and realize you're not weak. You're sick, and you can get well. And there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Just take that first step and get help and share your struggles.
Joanie?
I guess the same thing. You're not alone. There's somebody out there that is struggling with the same thing you are. So talk about it. Get it out in the open.
Banjo?
Make it a lot easier. Biscuit.
Biscuit. Say biscuit.
Oh, that's biscuit or Banjo likes biscuits?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you for listening to Blending the Family, the podcast. Thanks for listening. Instead of working on making dinner or doing something that's actually really important in your life that might get you further ahead, wait. Please leave a rating and review. However you get this podcast, whether it's through the mail or from your neighbor or listening in under the couch. I don't know. You tell me.